Go for it.
This is Lynn Rivers from lynnrivers.com, and you're listening to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, reminding you to feel better, be better, and do better.
Boom.
Mic drop.
It's going down, and I say, well, I won't say it. All right, I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Nelson, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer, and welcome to the show. How's it going?
Hey, it's going great, Jeff. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. It's one of the I think I manifested it, if you believe in that bullshit.
Sometimes yes.
It seems, yeah, it's like I know you guys reached out to me, so that, it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, this is shit I want to talk about. I mean, it's like the hardest part of the money thing. It's like getting debt free it's like the most difficult pill to swallow. So you are at debtfreedad.com. So talk a little bit about what you're most excited about at debtfreedad.com.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I think I've got one of the best jobs in the world is I get to help people with a really sensitive topic, which is money stress, debt,
right.
Not being able to save, paycheck to paycheck living. And one of the reasons why I love it so much is because I'm not speaking or teaching or helping people from this like ivory tower that I've built over the years.
Right.
I'm a normal dude, live in a normal house, drive normal cars, have a normal family, have the same types of challenges everybody else does, except I just made a decision a long time ago that I just wanted to handle my money differently after struggling for so long.
Right.
And it's just fun to be able to help people not just with their finances, but it's just I don't think people quite make the connection of how connected their financial situation is to the rest of their life. And if you get your finances in a better place, man, it's just this amazing ripple effect. So to be able to help people with that, and I get excited about it every day. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you reached out because like I said, I have this sort of like, feel like I've been so blessed and lucky just to like learn early a lot of the really key lessons in life. And just through I'm just walking around like Magoo. And I trip and I fall and I go, oh shit, I need to be debt free, something like that, And it never really got all that bad, but we'll get into it. But let's go back in time and talk about you when you had debt and you were struggling. So let's talk about that.
Well, I think I lived a pretty typical American life, just this very consumer driven, always relying on payments and credit cards and financing to get the things that I wanted in my life, focused really heavily on my credit score, making that the ultimate thing and really and really not just the other basic stuff like, budgeting and prioritizing saving and things like that. I kind of live like the typical American, hyper consumerism, always needing the next greatest thing. Always told myself, like when I get that raise or when I make more money, I'll do better then. But then that lifestyle creep hits, right? And it's just I bought a better house, better cars, went on better vacations. And it just kind of seemed like no matter how much money I was making, I was just never going to get ahead.
Right.
And I finally, as I got into my late 20s, especially in my late 20s, and even early 30s, I just got tired of stressing about all the time. It's just I had all these things, but I didn't have anything to really show for it outside of just a bunch of payments and debt. Losing sleep, and I had a decent job. I liked where I worked.
Okay.
But I was at the ceiling of where I could make it there, and I knew I topped out. Right. I knew that there wasn't really going to be any other place that I could go to make the same kind of money, and I was just kind of burnt out of it, but I always wanted to run my own business. But then when I started looking at my finances, it's like, man, there's no way in hell I can even quit my job and lose my salary to start a business. Like I'm just not in any financial situation to do that.
Right.
And my first marriage ended up ending in divorce, and money played a little bit of a role in why that marriage ended. So I can definitely see how money plays, a significant role in a relationship.
Yeah, yeah.
But, it was at that moment where I had a 2-year-old son, Noah, at the time. And I was just kind of like, I need to figure this stuff out. I was losing my home to foreclosure because neither one of us could afford the house.
Wow. Okay.
And, this was during that 2010, 2009, 2010 housing.
Yeah, that happened to everybody. Right, right. Yes.
And
everybody
we ended up buying,
suddenly underwater. I remember that.
Yeah, right. We were underwater. We couldn't sell it. So luckily we were able to short sell it. So we didn't have to actually foreclose that. We did short sell it.
Okay.
But, that's still a very humiliating thing, to go through, and scary too. I
had a lot of friends that just walked away. They do that thing where they just kind of like let the bank
let it go,
foreclose on it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you take like a hit on your credit score forever?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's
for 7 years or something.
Yeah, it's on there, but I think, you're pretty much, maybe outside of maybe fancy financing maybe that they could do, but you're pretty much SOL and getting another house for at least a minimum of 3 years.
Wow. Wow.
When they
you can't get another,
sale, so.
You can't get another mortgage basically.
For a while.
Right.
So I went to the renting, obviously I rented after that for a while, and
sure.
And I finally was just like, I got to do something different with this, and I got to figure this stuff out, because not only am I struggling, stressed all the time, but here I got this little kid, and this kid's going to look to me as an example of how to handle their finances. Like, and I'm a disaster. I'm just terrible at this. So,
right.
So I just started doing some self-education. I started reading books, listening to podcasts, taking seminars, taking classes, and I just started making it a priority in my life to learn how to do this stuff different. And I just started practicing some of these things. So like basic monthly budgets, living below your means,
right?
Saying no to debt, and really focusing on more of the holistic side, the behavior, the habits, the choices, and really kind of figuring out why is it that I'm spending the money on these certain things, and how can I change that? And after about 4 or 5 years of hard work, I failed my way out of debt, essentially, is what I did. I just tried and kept trying, fall off the wagon, try again, right? And eventually I made it.
Yeah.
And along the way, which was crazy, people started asking me for help, because I was talking about how life-changing it had become. Like, I actually had money in the bank finally. I was feeling less stress. I was able to go out and do things, paying cash for things.
Right.
And I'm just a normal income earner. At the time I was probably making 50 grand a year. I mean, it wasn't like I was making this huge income or anything.
Yeah. It's not about like the income necessarily. It's more about the spending side, really. Right.
Yeah, it's how you're managing that. And and people started asking me for help, and I was just like, hey, I can share at least some of the things I'm doing. I didn't do it for money at the time, and I was like, hey, well, I just kind of did these things or did this based on your situation. And then they would come back to me months later and say, holy crap, Brad, like, this stuff's working for me. This is awesome. Wow. And I really started falling in love with that process of how much of an effect it was not only having on my own life, but just on other people's lives too.
Wow.
And
nice.
I got this crazy idea that I could open a business, and,
and then you did.
And I did. That's coming up on 9 years ago now. I've been doing this full time for 8, and I've helped thousands of people now all over the world, traveled all over across the United States, Canada, doing speaking engagements and all sorts of things. Now I got this podcast that we run, and and again, I just love it, because I'm just this normal dude, and there's these people out there that think just because they're normal, make normal incomes, they can't win, and it's like, hey, we're going to teach you how to do it.
Right.
So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I get it. And, I checked out your website, and you've got like these real life people that, I could be related to.
There you go.
Ordinary folk that were in debt, and they figured it out with your help. So that's amazing. Yeah. So like when your co-host Amber reached out to me, I was like, yes, I have people in my circle of friends that, need this kind of thing, I'm not in a position that they come to me and they go, what do you do? I don't know. I haven't had debt in a long time.
Right. Yeah.
I have no clue. Well, what did you do to get out of it? Well, I paid off my credit cards. Well, that helps me not at all. Right.
Yeah. Right.
I did a lot of other stuff. All those things that you just talked about, like, and we can get into this. I want to, but it's more about, for us, I think it was as a family, both my wife and I, for sure, had to just learn like this series of lessons, like what you're talking about. Like buying that thing is not really going to make you happy very long, right? Whatever that thing is. I mean, you get like this temporary, tiny little ooh, right? And then it's gone. And the
Yep.
thing you want to do next is do that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's totally not worth it, you know?
And you have just described kind of the cycle of, impulsive, wasteful, and
Yeah.
consumerism type spending. And a lot of people get trapped in that. And it's easy to do in today's society.
It's encouraged, basically.
It's
encouraged.
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
so no guilt, no shame, no blame, right?
Yeah,
because we all did it. Like when I was a kid, like I was saying, I think I got my first credit card when I was still active duty, and I was in Hawaii. I think that was my second active duty assignment. And I just was like on that thing is like, hey, I've got all this credit. Why not use it? It should be fun, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I met my wife in Hawaii. We got married in 1993. So if you do the math, we've been married 31 years. Crazy.
Awesome. Good for you. Congratulations, man.
Pretty weird, right?
That's a pretty rare thing nowadays. Good for you guys.
Yeah. So, but coming into that marriage, now I forget the number. Let's go with, I think it was in the neighborhood of $12,000 of credit card debt. All me, all stupid. Like one big thing that I never used, I got a Roland JV80 keyboard. Never learned how to play the keyboard. And the rest,
but you had it.
Well, I played with it. Right? I plugged it into my computer and I ran MIDI programs and made it make noise. But I never really learned, how to play the piano, which would be a good idea. I ended up selling that, but it got a little bit of money, but nowhere near what I paid for it. The rest of that 12 grand was strippers.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Straight up strippers, right? So, fast forward. Now I'm married, so less strippers, right? I already had sold the keyboard,
right?
But my wife and I got, again, super duper lucky. When we got married in Japan, the proceeds of the gift, the cash gift, from the wedding in Japan, came out to be about $12,000. So we had $12,000 in the bank making, whatever interest you get in the 90s. I can't remember. Not a lot, right?
Yeah.
And then, 12%, 15%, whatever it is on that credit card, just sitting there, right? And I'm like doing what you did. I was like, oh yeah, I have to take that cash and I have to pay off that card, right? And I try to explain it to my wife, right? And she's like, yeah, we wouldn't have debt, but then we wouldn't have any money, right? And I was like, right. But this money costs more than that money is making. So I get it, right? So she's like, no, we can't do that because we have to have money. And I'm like, how am I going to get this through? So it just so happens that we had a mutual friend. So she was like doing Japanese tutoring for one of my bosses that I worked with. So I was like, Colonel Boomgart, you got to help me out. Okay, Yayoi has this thing, right? I explain the whole situation. And I say, suggest to her that it might be a good idea that we pay off the credit card with savings. And she comes up to me and says, hey, we need to do? We need to pay off the credit card with the savings because I didn't say it anymore.
Right.
That's the sort of stuff that you go through,
That stuff, but that you bring up a good point when it comes to relationships. I think this is like if you're in a disagreement about your money and your finances when it comes to, your relationship, I think bringing in a third party
actually super helps.
Yes, because you're no longer, the conversation is no longer like, well, you suggested that or finger pointing back and forth. It's like what this person said, and it opens up the conversation between the two of you about what that person said, not what the other one said.
Right. Right.
And I see this all the time in our program. We have, we got a membership program, and we'll have a lot of reluctant spouses that come with their spouse who really want to do it. And one of the things that we tell them to do is, well, just play the content and the stuff around them. Don't force them to sit down and watch it. Just play it around them.
Right.
And I
Okay.
guarantee you
Okay. Play it
that will
around
open
them.
up. Right.
Got it.
Play it around them. Like when
Okay.
you're in the car, just hit play. Don't say like, hey, we're going to sit down and listen to this together. Or don't make it a thing. Just play it around them. And by me talking, I guarantee you they're going to come back and say, I don't like what Brad had to say there, but at least it opens up the conversation between the two of you to begin to have a proactive conversation, because
Right.
usually the conversations are always around like when things are bad, like the credit
Yes.
card didn't get paid, or, you know, there's the cars needs to get fixed and we don't have money, or
Right, right,
Johnny broke his arm and we have all these medical bills now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all wrapped up into these like different roles. Like we have to do this for the family. Right.
Right.
And it,
right.
you know, and then once you commit to doing something that like a vacation or something, right?
Right. Right.
That, you know, you probably can't afford. Right.
Right.
But then, you know, you're in it. Right. It's like, well, I have to be the provider. Right. So there's all these different ways that like society is going to get you, or, you know, conventional thinking, let's say that, you know.
Yeah.
It's just like, this is what your job is as a dad. Well, really, what is it? You know, it's to live a good life, you know?
Right. Right.
So let's talk about like the process. Like I suggested to Amber, we talk about an imaginary family with, say, like mom and dad. They've got good jobs, but they've got like 3 kids and a lot of debt.
Okay.
So what does the process look like? So somebody joins.
Yeah. So generally speaking, I would say the first thing that we're obviously going to discuss is first looking at what are you doing with your money right now? You know, we just shared a statistic on our podcast. I talk about this one a lot because it's kind of eye-opening, but upwards of 50% of millennials, that's half of a generation, have no idea what's going on in their bank account. They don't even look at it. Have no clue what's going on in their bank account. So one of the very first things I have people do is it's crazy. And one of the first things I want people to do is really get acquainted with their finances. And that is, let's go back and look at the last 3 to 6 months. And if you're an overachiever, you want to do more, go back and do the last year and go back to your bank accounts, your credit card accounts. If you're using like some of these apps to pay for things like Venmo, you know, Apple Pay, you know, PayPal, like all these things, look at those accounts too. And, start printing out statements or saving them digitally and start going back month after month and seeing where's all our money been going.
Right.
This right here is very eye-opening for a lot of people, because most people who are living paycheck to paycheck, especially those who are making a pretty decent income,
right,
you know, they start to realize very quickly, like, we actually do have money. You know?
Wow. Okay.
It's just been going to a lot of the wrong things. You know, and there's overspending and just, you know, things that we're not paying attention to. I mean, it's not uncommon, Jeff, for me to have people go through this and they find hundreds of dollars a month, sometimes even thousands of dollars a month.
Right.
That's going to things that aren't helping them improve their finances. So the first step is really about creating more of an awareness around your finances, where your money is going, how much money you're bringing in, and what's going out.
Right.
Once you're done with that, then you can really start to say, okay, wow, I guess we do have some things that we need to work on when it comes to, you know, behaviors, habits, and choices. It could be like, hey, I don't plan well enough when I'm going to work and I'm stopping too often at the convenience store. I'm picking up soda, I'm picking up sandwiches, I'm buying food, and all of that stuff is inflated prices, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we make some changes there and more planning at home where we're not spending nearly as much going out. It could be going out to eat altogether. I'm not one of these people that says you can never go out to eat. You should never buy coffee. You should never do all those things. But, you know,
you need to be aware.
Has to be, there has to be a reasonable amount there that's still allowing you to also either save or pay down the debt that you have. Right. So, you know, the other thing too is this gives you an opportunity to say, what things am I willing to get rid of altogether? Like, and when you start thinking about where you want to be financially, and right now you're feeling crummy, you're feeling stressed, you'd like to have a savings, you like to pay down, like you mentioned, maybe it's credit cards. You know, what are you willing to sacrifice in order to get there is a great question for yourself. What do you want to sacrifice in order to get to where you want to go? And once you kind of have an awareness of what's actually being spent, you start to realize, like, feeling better about my money, having actual money in a savings account, paying off credit cards is more important than this stuff over here.
Right.
So we're willing to sacrifice some of these things. The other thing it gives you an opportunity to do is shop around things. Like, you know, it's not uncommon for me to see how many people have insurance that they've never shopped it around. They don't do it on a regular basis. And one of the areas where I see a lot of people being able to save a ton of money is on insurance by just shopping around their insurance premiums and their rates and getting the best deal. I mean,
That's
I've
a good
seen people
idea.
save
I could do
thousands
that.
of dollars. Yeah, thousands of dollars a year just
Right.
doing that. You know,
It's not
So-
something you think about necessarily.
no, and when
Right.
you're not paying attention, it's just easy to overlook because you're busy,
Right,
right?
right.
And it's just not something you're really thinking about.
Or those little things that are like are $10 a monthly subscription things.
Bingo, yeah, subscriptions.
Those things,
like, are we?
those things are so, you know, it's just like, and there's like social pressure on those things.
yeah.
I remember I was in massage school and somebody was like on, whatever, Spotify, insert whatever here. Right. And they're like, oh, I'm going to send you my playlist. Get on there. Right. And I like your playlist. I can't listen to it. I don't have a subscription. And they're like, don't be cheap. It's only $10 a month. And I'm like, oh,
Right.
no.
Yep.
Whenever I hear subscription, right.
And it's
I
how
already
much-
have one. Right.
yeah. And you said the secret words there. I mean, how much money have we all spent with those words? It's only
Yes. Yes.
the thousands of dollars that have slipped through my fingers over the years, right?
So this applies to like you start doing like web page stuff, right? Like I've got my website for the podcast is WordPress, right?
Okay,
There
yeah.
are a million things that you can subscribe to on WordPress.
Yeah. Those little plugins.
I
Yeah.
do not subscribe to any plugins. Now, if there is one service that I pay for, I think it's like $30 a year. Now I'm okay with that. It's that anti-spam thing that gets built in by automatic. You kind of have to have that.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
if you
for
want WordPress, it's almost like it's $30 a year. I can handle that,
Right. Right.
But if there's a plugin that I think is cool and it's like a single purchase price that's reasonable, I might consider it, but never like a subscription, because those subscriptions, you forget about them.
Yep. So easy. And this is, and you bring up another expense that a lot of us do tend to forget about. I mean, I want to say, I don't know the exact statistic anymore, but the last time I think we talked about it on our show, I want to say it was like $140 a month on average people spend on like those types of subscriptions.
Crazy. Yeah.
It's a lot,
And they make it really tricky to cancel.
Oh, cancel. Right. It drives me nuts. Oh, you got to call. You got to
It's
call
almost like you
them,
want
right?
to hire someone to like quit for you.
Yeah. Well, there's actually some financial tools out there that'll actually do that stuff for you.
That's good.
And of course, guess what, Jeff? You have to pay a subscription to use it.
Of course. But
Let us help you cancel your subscription by subscribing to this.
I did learn, I learned, what was it? This persuasion trick that's what they're doing, right? They're using this persuasion technique. They want to make it really, really tricky for you to cancel that and to make you feel icky to cancel that. And this applies to anything. It could be changing your cable company for internet, for TV, your phone plan. It doesn't matter, right? The first thing you go and figure out, like very difficultly, how to cancel, right? Right.
Right.
It's like you call them and the first question they'll say is, why do you want to cancel?
Yep.
And you can't give a reason. You should never, ever give a reason because you don't need one. You don't need a reason to stop paying for something you don't want to pay for anymore. So if you want to give a reason, say, I no longer wish to pay for this service.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Exactly. You got it.
You can't, if you say anything other than that, if like an actual reason, they'll have a counter. They've got a list.
Yep. I don't like it. Yes. One that comes to mind is Sirius Radio. They're really good at that.
Right.
And I do. That's one of the services I do subscribe to because I like
too.
some of their stations that they have on there.
I love Sirius. I listen to it every day. Yeah.
Yeah, but they pull that stuff. Like, hey,
Of course.
I know they raised the price on me, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to pay that price. So I messaged them. I said, I would just like to cancel if this is the new price. It's just, again, like I just don't want to pay for this service anymore.
Right.
Oh, well, you know what? We're going to give you the next 90 days for free.
Okay.
And then it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll keep it for 90 days. But then what happens is then you forget,
Yes.
cancel it, and the price is there again. That's the stuff that they pull every single time.
I actually had a couple of things where with my Sirius, because it's got like, NFL games on the road. I am often on the road and want to listen to an NFL game. And
Yeah.
my phone service is super cheap, so I don't have a lot of data. So Sirius is like a compromise, right?
Yeah,
So I can
right.
listen to an NFL game while I'm driving, and that's basically why I have it. So during the season, I can actually make it cheaper.
Right.
Or after, I should say, after the season's over, you can go in there and take it down to like music only
Okay.
until NFL starts again. But it's like $5. Is it a month?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So like I haven't done that in a while, but I have done it, you know, in the past.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You really have to have a lot of time on your hands
Oh yeah. Right. Right.
to want to think like that level. But yes, I've done it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think, you know, for the first part of anybody going to do anything, it's about creating awareness around like these things that we're talking about, and
Right.
and just getting more acquainted with what you've been doing with your money. I mean, it's got to be the first thing you do. And what a lot of people tend to do is, you know, they'll start their first budget without really knowing anything about where they're spending money. How much money on the average are they spending, say, on things like groceries and gas and insurance and
Right.
prescriptions, and you know, they'll start
Even
putting
big
together a
things.
budget.
Like a lot of people will want to think about like okay, all these little things, and they get excited because like you said, once you start looking, you can find easy things that like there's no pain for anyone. You just forgot you were paying that bill. So once you get past that, then you have to start digging a little bit deeper, right?
Right. Yep. Exactly.
When I that's why we moved from California to Vegas. You know, I was like, can we afford to live in California? Sure, yes, but you know, capital gains. They tax capital gains at the state level at 7%. That's like having two countries.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm like planning to retire, and I'm going to be living off of capital gains.
Right.
I don't want to do that.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy.
Right. So like, I guess my point is like, that's got to be like one of those really difficult conversations with the whole fam. Like if you're talking about like, can we afford where we live now?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Maybe not.
I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you bring up a valid point too about living situations too. There's, you know, this is a trend I've been seeing on, you know, social media, like especially like TikTok and things, and people creating these videos about, you know, how do you even afford to live anymore? And it's like, well, if you listen to where some of these people live, and it's like, well, of course it's expensive to live in the big city. You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
you can't. Yeah, I can't survive on $150,000 a year anymore. Well, yeah, because you live in a big city. Maybe you think about moving to a different location.
Right.
Well, I can't do that. Well, you know, so a lot of people will just focus too much on what they can't do and not what they can do.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And you know, if you're always focused on everything you won't try or won't do, I mean, it's pretty hard to have any sort of growth or any sort of progress there. You got to be willing to make some changes. And I think there are some people, especially some higher income earners. I mean, I think the last statistic that we shared on our podcast is like 25% of them who make $150,000 or more are living paycheck to paycheck right now.
Right.
And a lot of it comes down to cost of living issues and things like that.
It doesn't even really like, I think I started out this, like a lot of folks make a lot of money. They make good money, right?
Yeah. Right.
You know, both, you know, two income families, you know, maybe the kids are contributing, maybe they're not. But it's not even about the money coming in. It's more about thinking about what you know, I don't even think people that are in debt, right? They don't have any concept of what it's like not to be.
Right. Yeah, they don't. You are absolutely right. Right. It's like I say this, people are always like, ew, it's like the kid who craps their pants and doesn't want their pants changed. It's warm, right? It's theirs. They don't want to take, you know, it's like they don't want to get changed.
Yeah.
And you're just sitting in this constant financial stress all the time. You don't know any different.
Right.
And it's like, and when people hear anything different, like stuff that we're talking about here today, Jeff, like when people hear these different ideas, sometimes it's like, it's almost like unbelievable. Like there's no way people could live like that. I mean, there's no way. I mean, how would I be able to do it? Well, in a lot of ways, you're looking at your finances with a lot of, with broken glasses, essentially. You know, you're trying to fix your finances with the same worn out tools that you've always used, and those don't work anymore. You know?
Right.
And you're absolutely right. Breaking that mindset of I'm always going to be living paycheck to paycheck, or you're always going to have a car payment, or you're always going to have credit cards. Like,
yeah.
Sometimes just getting people to that point is a huge win, because if we can get your
Huge.
mindset shifted, I mean, that's when
Huge.
the fun really starts to happen.
Yeah,
You know?
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, again, I clouseaued through all of this, but like one of the big aha moments was when we were in England. We were leaving England, and it was like 2003, moving to LA. So LA was going to be my last Air Force assignment before I retire. And I was looking at like the savings. So we had enough savings in England to buy a car with cash. Right?
Awesome. Yeah.
Well, I felt weird and scared. And then and my wife again didn't want to do it. Because she said, yeah, but then we wouldn't have money. And I was like, well, we'll still have enough money. And I think we're there now, right? And that is just like a life-changing moment, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you've done it, right?
Yep.
But the very first time that you do that, it's like something clicks in your brain. It's like, oh, wait a minute. I know people don't do this, but this is a really good move.
Yeah. Right. Yep. Yep. It's a very, well, especially if you've lived broke as long as I have,
Right.
And you finally get to the point where it's like, holy crap. Like, we just got through like the holidays spending only cash. We didn't use any credit cards. Like, how cool is that? Or,
right.
Or like you said, even to the point of paying cash for a vehicle. I mean, there's so many people who just think that that's just
impossible.
You'd never be able to do that. But
right.
we got people doing it all the time now with people that we've helped over the years.
Right.
And it's
right.
just, takes time to get there, but man, you can get there. You can get there.
That's not true. I did spend $2,700 on a car, but that's not a lot of money.
Right. Yeah.
This was like a brand new car. So it was like 20 grand for like a Ford Focus or something. Yes.
Sure. Well, I mean, shoot, even having $2,700, Jeff, I mean, right now, 63%, I shouldn't even say right now, over the last 7 years, statistic has pretty much stayed the same, whether it's inflation or COVID, but right around 63% say that they can't afford a $500 expense without going into debt.
Wow.
$500 unexpected expense. That's 63% of the population can't do that right now.
Wow.
So even for some, having just $2,700 in the bank is like,
that's like
holy
life
crap.
changing.
Like that's amazing.
Right. And like, the mindset to leave it alone.
Yeah. Right.
To not look at it greedily and go,
I was just talking to somebody
what
today.
What can I get? Yes. Right.
Yeah. I was just talking to a person today. I'm kind of working through and coaching through on this. And they made the joke. They're like, can I give you my $3,000 that's in my emergency fund? Because I'm afraid I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
Because it is there. That's where that behavior habits, come in. And it's like, you have to, and I did it when I first started, I'd have some savings, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, look at that cool TV over there. And I want that. I've got this money in the bank over here. And how many times I screwed myself, and went and did something stupid. You finally, it's like that whole, you touch the stove, one too many times, you realize you could get burned. Right.
Right.
And I did that to myself a lot. And finally you just learn, and it's like, okay, I'm not doing that anymore. And you start to really build those good solid habits. And you need those. Like if you're talking about things like you mentioned you want to retire. I mean, you think about retirement, and you got to leave that shit alone. Like you can't be diving in there every time you need something, because that money's for when you're not working anymore. You know? So you need to create these kinds of things. And I think, you mentioned like this pretend family, they got kids. I mean, I think this is especially important when you're a parent and you're talking about your kids is instilling things like that in them, because those are the simple, and I say they're simple, they're hard to do in practice, but simple concepts of just putting money away, not touching it, delayed gratification, patience. These are all like really basic concepts that we need to really be pulling into our kids, especially when it comes to their finances. So even teaching them at a young age of how to save and leave their money alone. And when you want something, we're going to save up for it.
Make a plan.
Make a plan. Right.
Right.
Simple things to do. Because so effective when it comes to money management. And those are the skills that are the hard things for people to learn. It's not the math stuff. It's not the, budgeting at first is hard, but people get the hang of that pretty quickly. People get the concepts of getting out of debt. It's all of the other stuff. It's the discipline. It's the consistency. It's the patience. It's it's all of those characteristics and things that come with changing habits, behaviors, and choices that are the hard things that take time to change. And those are the things that people really need the most help with, because that, and they're at the root of it for most people, not everybody, but for most people, is where the financial problems are coming from. It's a lack of those things that's caused a lot of the issues that they're dealing with.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so when you start with these people, like what sorts of, like, I guess, roadblocks and like challenges do people run into as a family, right?
Yeah.
I there's gotta be tons of conflict around this stuff. We've already talked about that. Yeah. But
yeah,
like,
I mean,
how do you get everybody in the family on board on a program like this?
Yeah, it takes time. I will say getting the kids on board is a lot easier than, say, like a reluctant spouse.
Right.
I think one of the things that you can do as a couple, obviously the two of you need to be on the same page before you get your kids involved. But I think the thing that you can do as a couple is have more discussions proactively about where you want to be instead of where you're at right now.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Too
Try
many
to
times
see where you want to go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And too many times we're always playing defense, or the only time we're ever talking about money is really when something bad is happening. And typically there's a lot of finger pointing, there's a lot of yelling, there's fighting with those things.
Right.
I mean, one of the number one causes of divorce in the United States has to do with money related fights and arguments.
Right.
So I think from a couple's perspective, whether you're married or not, and whether even if you keep your finances separate, I think the two of you need to have open communication about, okay, how would we like to feel about our finances? Or when we think about our finances now, what are our feelings right now? Are we embarrassed? Are we ashamed? Are we fearful? Talk about things that are like non-negotiables. Like, hey, if you're someone who, I'm not a hunter, but I live in Wisconsin, a lot of people hunt here, right?
Everybody hunts. Yeah.
In fact,
in November, if you're not wearing orange, you're a weirdo.
Right. I think I read a statistic in the month of November in Wisconsin. I think during hunting season, we are the 8th largest army in the world.
Geez, if you include Upper Peninsula, Michigan, that would be twice as big.
Probably even bigger, right? But
that's great.
But talk about those things, like I want to have these things in our lives, or I want to feel this way, and what's keeping us from doing that, and then really talk about those feelings with each other. Typically, it's typically the one person that feels the worst about their finances is the one person who's responsible for the finances in the house, and that's a lot of weight to bear. A lot of stress. Upwards of 70% of the population say their number one source of stress and anxiety is their money problems.
Right.
And so if you've got one person responsible for it in the relationship and the other partner isn't pulling their weight, I mean, you're really leaving that partner out in the cold. You really need to help them and work through it together. One person can be responsible for the implementation of the plan, but to have that one person have to figure it all out all the time, I think is a huge cop out for that partner that isn't interested or doesn't want to participate.
Yeah, right.
So I think having these conversations and going about them in a little bit more of a proactive way, you start to create what we like to call as like a vision or like a why. Why do we want to do this work to get out of debt? Well, we want our lives to look like this. We want these things for our kids. When we want to be able to go on a cash vacation once a year, we want less debt, or we just want to freaking be able to sleep at night without having to worry about what if something happens tomorrow, how the hell are we going to pay for it?
Right.
Start creating that for your life. What does that look like? And then what we can do is whittle our way down and figure out, okay, well, then what are the action steps that we can take to get to this new place that we want to be? And once there's buy-in for both partners, now we're both willing to say compromise more. We're both willing to have more open discussions because we have a unified approach and how we're going to go about and where we want to be in our life. I mentioned, Jeff, that I've traveled all over the United States and in Canada doing speaking events. And one of the things I'll ask, like if I'm teaching couples is, raise your hand if any of you have ever gone through some sort of financial education class or anything financially related as a couple. And hardly anybody, if nobody, raises their hand.
Right.
They've ever done it. you know,
This is the first
yet-
time.
right. This is your
right.
first time.
Yeah.
But yet, this is the number one cause of fights. So I think, as a couple, the more proactive you can be in your financial conversations that you're having, I think the better. And I think it all just starts with some simple things that you can do. We have a lot of these tools just on our website. You can go out there. They're free.
Oh, nice.
I mean, just listening to our podcast. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do to start opening up those discussions and conversations.
right.
But the sad reality, Jeff, is what we deal with a lot is, I mean, there's a lot of negative feelings around finances. Finances are just very taboo topic for a lot of people. It's just something that
yes.
for a lot of families, it's
Well,
an
it's a lot of
off-limits
finger.
topic.
It's like a finger pointing thing. It's like,
Yeah.
it's all you. You're the asshole.
yeah, it's your fault or right.
Right. If we could
And-
just get you under control, and
Yeah.
both people are saying it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, and I think, we get a lot of that stuff from when we're kids about our financial mindset. A lot of that is learned at a very young age when you're in a family. And, if it depends on how you were raised, like, did your parents do well with money? Did they talk about it openly, or was it a shameful topic? We don't discuss those things. Did you come from maybe, say, a family that was less adequate, maybe even a poorer family? So, I mean, now you're going to bring this into a relationship as an adult, and like, we're just smashing into each other. Right.
It's very
so I think
fight-inducing, conflict-inducing.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing I was thinking about that I liked about your show and your podcast and the website is, I've been sort of like bucket in on the other end of financial independence, retire early for so long, right? Like when I mention those words to people in my peer group, they're not anywhere near fire anything, right?
Yeah. Right.
So, and then there's this other guy who is saying essentially the same thing that we're all talking about, but his called How to Live Your Rich Life, right? There's a buzzword. People go, I don't want to be rich. Leave me alone. I'm not listening to that, right?
Yeah,
it's all the same stuff, but I think you really have to hit people where they are.
Right.
Right. So if you're like our imaginary couple, right? They don't want to hear about rich. They don't want to hear about financial independence. They just want to be able to pay their freaking bills,
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it. Right. That's why we don't, I even the word, debt-free dad, or our workshop that we have that's free on our website, it's called Life Without Payments. I tell people right away, it's like, we're called these things and this is the name of these things, but get that out of your mind right away. Well, let's just focus on small things. Like, hey, if you're just getting started, let's focus on not using credit cards for a month. Let's start there.
Right.
Can we go for a month without it? And then if we can go for a month, maybe we can go 2 months. And if we go for 2 months and we go for 3 months, then we're going to build on that. Sooner or later, you prove to yourself, like, holy crap, I can actually do this. I'm not going to prove it to you.
Right.
It's going to be your actions that are really going to prove that you can do the work.
Okay. So that's an interesting action step right there. You just said, don't put anything on credit. And that makes sense.
Right.
It's something that I never thought about, but yes, that makes sense. Right.
Yeah. Just say no for a little bit and just let's see how far you can go. Like, just start small. Start with I'm going to do it for, like, if you're someone who's always using credit cards, or, you're using them on a regular basis, then say, oh, I'm going to start with a week. I'm not going to do credit cards for a week, and I'm going to go do what Brad says to do. And I'm going to do it for a week. We're going to see if it works. And if I can do a week, maybe I can do it 2. And you just build on that. It's all about taking those little steps.
Sure. That's amazing. So talk a little bit about this Roots program and and like some of the success stories in there. Because
absolutely.
It looked amazing. It's not that much money, so that's good.
Yeah, very, very affordable. And so when I was getting out of debt, I realized, like, the one thing that I was lacking the most, education is out there. Like, listen, you go learn how to be out of debt today. Search "get out of debt" on Google. You'll have 2 billion resources right at your fingertips to start learning how to do it.
Right.
And we teach a lot of it on our podcast for free. Like, it's out there.
It's there.
The thing that we struggle with the most, though, is, like we've talked about on today's show, Jeff, is the other things. It's the patience, the consistency, the discipline, being accountable, and sticking with it. Because we're all great at starting. We're all great at starting.
Right.
As we're recording this, it's the last day of January. We're in the new year started. Everyone had their New Year's resolutions, or some people did, but 80% of people have given up on their New Year's resolutions by the end of January.
Right.
And it's not because they don't know how to do it. I'm sure they do. Like they know how to get to the gym, they know how to open the door, they know how to get on the machines.
But
right?
they don't know how to cancel their membership.
Right. A lot of us don't, right? Because there's that. Yeah, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back. Right.
I'm pot committed. I have to go.
Right.
I'm not gonna.
Yeah, but where a lot of us struggle is continuing with it. It's sticking with it long term. We can all do things for 30 days, maybe 60 days, maybe even 90 days if you're an overachiever. But after that, it starts to get a little murky, right? We start to fall off the wagon. Sooner or later, those friends keep asking us to go out to lunch at work and we keep saying yes. And sooner or later, you're kind of back to your old ways. And it's not because you don't know how to do the stuff that you're supposed to do. It's just because you lack support and accountability. And so I wanted to create that environment to help people through that process, because that's where the results come from.
Right.
It's not learning how to do everything in education, because all of that's there. We also will give you that in Roots, but the big part of what we do is the support and accountability to stick with it. And those people,
so it's
who
like
are
a
able to
community.
stick with it,
You've got to like say, hey, I'm really struggling talking to spouse about this, or the kids are going crazy about this. Right.
You got it.
It's all the not the nuts and bolts thing, but it's
correct.
It's the thing that you're working on.
Exactly.
Changing
right.
your mind. Right.
You got it. And the cool part about it is that there's hundreds of other people that are like-minded, that also have similar goals as you, that are also in this community. So
and they're struggling.
They're struggling. They're working through those things. They're having conversations. And for a lot of people, money is not something that we openly talk about in our social circles. We don't talk about it with friends unless we buy a new
thing. Right.
Unless we buy a new car or go on a fancy vacation. We'll post that shit on social media all the time.
Right.
But the 70% of people that are living paycheck to paycheck, they ain't talking about that on social media, and they certainly aren't admitting that to friends and family for the most part, right?
Right.
So this gives you an opportunity and an environment for those people who are willing to stand up and say, "Hey, I want to do something different right now." And there's this new trend right now, Jeff, going on social media, especially TikTok. It's called loud budgeting. That's the term. Loud budgeting is the buzzword right now, right?
I love it. I love it.
And loud budgeting for the younger generation has turned into, hey, I'm going to be more vocal and just say, instead of I can't afford it, I'm just choosing not to spend. I'm choosing this because I want to have better for my financial life, right?
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what we've created in Roots, is an environment for you to loudly talk about your financial challenges, your celebrations, your goals, the things that you want to achieve, and then also to be able to get help from someone like me who's helped thousands of people do it.
Right.
And to be able to lean on people who are actually getting those types of results and are changing their finances. And again, these are normal everyday people. I mean, I just had a teacher on my podcast, been in our program for 4 years. She's paid off over $150,000.
Wow.
Normal person,
Wow. That's amazing.
So, I mean, these are normal everyday people that we're helping. And it's not like, they're all, doctors and lawyers and making these huge incomes. These are normal everyday people with normal life challenges, just like everybody else. And they're just saying, hey, I want to do this different. And Roots is creating that environment in order to get those types of results. So that's ultimately what it is at the end of the day, is the support and accountability group.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. And everybody listening, Brad has been there. So how long have you been debt free?
I'm approaching 11 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 11 years outside of my mortgage. I still have a mortgage.
Yeah, mortgages don't count.
Mortgages, yeah, they don't.
Because it's especially now. Oh my God. I think I've got
damn
like
near impossible, I think.
2.6 something, right? 2.5 something on my interest rate for my loan.
Yeah.
And then I think what is it? It's a savings account is now making 5% APY.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, you have a high yield. Right. So yeah, it would be stupid right now. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. My mortgage is 2.75. It would be stupid to take money out of my high yield savings account to pay down my mortgage or pay it off.
Right.
Because I'm making more money with it in savings right now.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And, and money costs money. That's another one thing that you have to, remember, right?
Yep.
And I just went through this because I'm trying to convince my wife to quit her damn job so we can go out and do space age travel and be fully retired. Instead, I'm sitting around in the house bored without my job. No, I don't want to get another job. So one of the things that she brought up was, she was like, I know I'm getting close to quitting, but how's the mortgage doing? Right. And I'm like, it's this much. And she's like, oh, It would be so much better if that was just paid off. And I'm like, oh, this shit again. I thought we were over this. No. It never ends. Even when you're done, you're not done.
Yeah. Right. Yep.
So, okay. Yeah, I know. So you are at debtfreedad.com. So how can folks best get in touch with Brad Nelson?
Yeah, if you want to, obviously you go to debtfreedad.com. That's a great place to start. Our podcast is there.
Lots of free stuff. You can start for free.
Yep, start for free. We got some free workshops, free tools that are out there for you to get started with. As far as podcasts, if you want to look at certain episodes and interested in certain topics, some of our most popular ones are like, hey, what's the best way to pay off debt? What are some of those methods? You go check out episode number 213. We share specifically those methods and what are the best ones to get out of debt.
Okay. I can link to that in the show notes.
Yeah. Yeah. Episode 169. Like if you're someone who is feeling like kind of what we talked about, I make a decent income, but I'm barely able to afford my bills or pay down debt or save money. Like, what do I do in that situation? Episode 169 is going to be a great episode for you to get started with.
So 213 and 169.
213 and 169.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Those are going to be some of our more popular shows. But again, the cool part about our podcast and what I like about it is we're all normal people. We're all from different walks of life. We've got Katie, who's single and on a single income. And she started out this whole process, Jeff, making just $13 an hour 5 years ago. She has now paid off over $140,000 of debt on a single income as a single person in 5 years.
In a weird way, she's got it easier than somebody married with kids.
We talk about that on the show a lot. That's a cool part about our show.
When you're single, you don't have to argue with anybody other than yourself.
You got it. Yep.
So you single people, at least you don't have to deal with other folks.
Yes, correct.
So that. Trust me, it's a bonus.
Yeah. It can be easier for sure. But yeah, I mean, so we all come from different backgrounds, but we've all achieved or are achieving financial freedom and getting out of debt. And we're just sharing on the show, hey, we're normal everyday people. These are the challenges that we have. These are the things that we're facing. And here's how we're dealing with it based on how we handle our finances now. And by the way, you can do this too. And I think, so if you're someone who's out there like interested or like we talked about having trouble with this mindset of like, you can actually live without debt, making a normal income, go listen to the Debt Free Dad podcast because that show will help turn on some light bulbs for you and get you thinking differently.
Right before we go,
let's
talk about some of the favorite things you get to do because you're debt free.
Oh my gosh. Favorite things.
You get to
Here comes one right now. She's behind me.
All right. Hey.
There's my daughter. Yeah. So that's one of the things for me is being with my kids. I work from home. I'm able to set my own hours.
Right.
I have what I call is time freedom. That's what I shot for. And that's how my goals changed, especially as I got out of debt, is I wanted to create more time in my life and not more than 24 hours, but just I wanted to have more chunks of time throughout the day to be able to do the things that I love. Right.
Yes. Right.
So there are some days where I only have to work 3 or 4 hours because I've got a really great automated business and I've got some great team members that work with me and I'm able to spend more time picking up my kids from school, helping them with homework, going out and doing things. Sometimes it's just chilling out, right?
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time camping. I've got a seasonal camper.
Yeah.
That's about 2 hours from my house and we have a seasonal site up there. One year we spent 90 nights there and I can work from anywhere, which is cool.
Yeah.
So I can work from my camper as long as I got an internet signal, like I'm good. Like, so I think
awesome.
having that freedom and just being able to do what I want, be my own boss. I mean, and being with my kids, those have been some of the greatest benefits of all of this.
That's amazing.
And that's the cool ripple effect.
Yeah. That's the thing to shoot for.
Yeah. Brad, that's the cool ripple effect.
This has been a blast.
Yes. Thanks, Jeff. It's been great.
What's the daughter's name again? Sorry.
Her name is Avery.
Avery. Thanks for hanging out with us for a little while.
She loves being down here doing the podcast. She's like pushing all the buttons on the machines.
She can't hear me. That's right. You got the headphones in.
No.
She's trying to give me signs and stuff. It's awesome. All right, Brad.
Probably can. Say hi. Say hi.
Hi, Avery.
She
doesn't
can
want
hear
to
you
say
now.
Hi.
She's shy.
I like your hair. It looks good up. All right, brother. You have a good one.
All right.
Go
You
take
too.
care of
Thanks so
Avery.
much.
All right.
All right. We'll see you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.